I was not here, but I saw a member of this committee questioned whether or not you represent science.
Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci?
I am a scientist who uses the scientific method to gain information.
Yes, you said you represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci? Yes
Again,
or no? Yes or no?
No, that's not a yes or no
Yes,
answer.
it's a yes or no.
I don't think it is.
Okay, well, we'll take that as a you don't know what you represent.
I just want you to know most Americans don't think she represents Congress. Dr. Fauci, you talked about how, we live in partisan times, a lot of misinformation, and, colleagues on this body said, you should be, charged and found guilty. Of course, the only one that's happened to is your former boss. But, the question I have is, when you saw a lot of that disinformation, whether it was, we can use a disinfectant to do like a cleaning or do light in the body, or that, China's working super hard, President Xi's got it contained, all of the stuff that was being put out, were you concerned? What was your feeling at that time, working in the administration, seeing that come from the podium?
Well, I was very frustrated by that. It was very clear. I was put in a very difficult position that I didn't like, of having to contradict publicly the President of the United States. I took no great pleasure in that, but I felt it was my responsibility to preserve.
He must have thought you did a great job. He gave you a commendation right before he left.
Well, I felt it was my responsibility, as to preserve my own personal integrity, and my major responsibility to the American public to tell them the truth.
I actually, similar to Representative McCormick, who was serving in the field as a doctor during COVID, I was running the logistics operation and the Florida response as the director of emergency management for the state of Florida for Governor DeSantis. So I was deploying masks and gowns and gloves. We were setting up field hospitals. We were setting up testing sites. We were setting up vaccine sites throughout the pandemic. And the one thing that became clear to me as a country is we were not prepared. In fact, we actually had many preparations for a pandemic, but both the states collectively and the federal government threw that out and kind of was just making it up as we go. One of the things I wanted to ask you, and I understand you're not in the response field, but do you feel, since you've left, that we are better prepared today than we were several years ago when COVID hit?
In some respects, in some respects we are, but in others I'm still disappointed. And I think one of the things that was really a problem with the response was the degree of divisiveness that we had in the country about a lack of a coherent response, where we were having people, for reasons that had nothing to do with public health or science, refusing to adhere to public health intervention measures. What I think that we will do better, hopefully, is that the CDC, I believe, has now recognized some of the failings of the lack of communication and interaction between the federal response and the local public health officials. One of the weaknesses that we had in the United States that other countries didn't have was a disconnect between the healthcare system and the public health system, whereas the CDC can't demand information from local public health individuals. They have to volunteer to give it to them, and it isn't given to them in real time. So we were at a disadvantage.
Oh, no question. I saw that. I saw how the lack of investment in technology, right? We had states trying to share information with the federal government using, Windows 2000.
Or fax machines.
Fax machines,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
and so, we spent $7 trillion in two packages and two administrations. And one of my concerns is that I feel that, especially in supply chain, I feel like we're not that much better off than we were before COVID. Am I wrong in that assessment?
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong, but I hope that the CDC has made it very clear that they are trying to change that and correct that deficit of a separation between the local and the federal CDC so that we can get information in real time. It was very frustrating for us that often we had to go to the UK or South Africa or Israel to get real-time information because they had a connection between what was going on in the ground and their public health system. So they
Right.
knew right away what was happening. We didn't. If I could just take this opportunity, when I was saying that if you attack me, you attack science, I didn't mean that I am science. What I meant was that when the data showed that hydroxychloroquine does not work, and there are people saying, oh, it does, I'll give it to people, and we know it can be hurtful to them, then when you're attacking what I'm saying, that the science shows it doesn't work, and the science shows that bleach doesn't work, that when you attack that, you really are attacking science, because science has shown that it doesn't work. That's what I meant when you're attacking me, you're attacking science.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.